Adam Copeland reunites with Christian Cage on AEW Dynamite on his debut on the show, but Christian Cage has told him where to go when it comes to teaming up in the future. Adam Copeland also reunited with Chris Jericho, as well as met Kenny Omega for the first time. MJF accepts the challenge from Switchblade Jay White for an AEW World Championship match at Full Gear next month. Wardlow makes his return to AEW television after being off for over 3 months. NXT draws the highest total viewership in over 3 years ahead of next week's head-to-head episode against AEW Dynamite on Tuesday. Speaking of that head-to-head night, AEW has announced several matches for next week's Dynamite show against NXT. Rey Fenix retains the AEW International Championship and has a big match set for next week's show. Billie Starkz announces she has officially signed with All Elite Wrestling, and Julia Hart is set to take some time off from All Elite Wrestling. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about Adam Copeland, of course, making his AEW Dynamite debut last night. And in an in-ring segment to end last night's 4-year anniversary, the 4th anniversary edition of AEW Dynamite, Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge, and Christian Cage came face-to-face in the ring. Adam Copeland began his first AEW promo explaining his intention in AEW, partially to face a host of talent he's never been in the ring with. However, he then shifted gears to share one of the deciding factors for coming to AEW, his 9-year-old daughter encouraging him to, quote, go have fun with Uncle Jay, referring to Christian Cage. With Copeland calling out Cage, he obliged by coming to the ring for the face-to-face. With a heartfelt and emotional promo from Copeland, he told Christian that he still loves him despite his recent dastardly actions. However, at Wrestle Dream, when he saw Christian standing over Sting, he had to interfere, going on to add that he knows from experience that Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus will drop Christian at the first chance they get. As soon as they've sucked the knowledge out of him, he pled with Cage, telling Christian that it was time for them to team together again, to face teams like FTR, the Young Bucks, and, quote, show an entire generation of fans why they are inarguably one of the greatest tag teams of all time, before a momentary pause between the two. While Christian took the microphone from Adam, he embraced and hugged him. He then said into the mic behind Copeland's back some words that were censored on the TBS version of the broadcast. However, we have the uncensored version. In fact, here's what Christian Cage said to Edge. He said,
"Go fuck yourself."
Yes, certainly pretty intense stuff. Now, leaving the ring, he paused on the entrance ramp to remind Adam what he was up against next Tuesday in his debut match in AEW, bringing out Luchasaurus and also joined by Nick Wayne. So, what did you think of this segment? What did you think of Adam Copeland's plea? And where do you think this is going? Are we going to eventually get Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage? Do you think eventually they'll come full circle and start to tag team together? Do you think Edge, or Adam Copeland, will be the person that actually turns heel in the future? Let me know your thoughts about that, and your thoughts on the segment, and your thoughts on Christian Cage's words last night in the comment section below. Now, as I mentioned, Adam Copeland was kind of all over AEW Dynamite last night. AEW actually made a bit of a funny reference to Adam Copeland's former Edge moniker in the opening segment of last night's show. In a backstage interview featuring Renee Paquette, Chris Jericho, and Kenny Omega, Omega dropped a funny line to Adam Copeland himself, telling Copeland that his debut had him on the edge of his seat. The wink to Copeland's WWE moniker was obvious. Obviously, WWE owns the trademark for the name Edge, hence why Copeland can't actually use it in AEW. Also in the segment, Omega greeted Adam Copeland and extended the offer, if you ever need anything, let me know, which is quite intriguing. Where do you think that one's going? Of course, Kenny Omega is one of the names that Adam Copeland said he would like to face during his time in AEW. So where do you think this thing could go when it comes to if you need anything, let me know? Could Adam Copeland use this to set up a match against Christian Cage in the future, given the fact that Kenny Omega is an EVP, or is this going to lead to a match between the two in the future at some point? Let me know your thoughts about that. Now, the AEW World Championship match is set for Full Gear as well, and it's going to be a big one featuring MJF versus Switchblade Jay White. AEW has woken up from Wrestle Dream and is now on the road to Full Gear. On Wednesday's AEW Dynamite, Jay White attacked AEW World Champion MJF and stole the AEW title from the People's Scumbag. The attack followed Bullet Club Gold demanding answers for the attack on Jay White last week, which was carried out by a group of masked men, one of which wore MJF's trademark devil mask. Of course, MJF is adamant that he didn't attack White last week, claiming that his trademark mask has been stolen. After delivering a Blade Runner to MJF, we then saw Jay White actually go back up the entrance ramp as well. As I mentioned, he took the belt with him. White challenged MJF to a world title match at Full Gear on November 18 in Inglewood, California at the Kia Forum. The Furious champion accepted White's challenge. Of course, should MJF retain the title on November 18, he will become the first AEW World Champion to hold the title for a full year, as he won the belt on November 19, 2022 at last year's edition of Full Gear, where he defeated Jon Moxley thanks to some help from William Regal. So where do you think this one is headed? Do you think we'll have the reveal of who attacked Jay White? Who do you think still attacked Jay White? Do you believe what MJF has been saying? And what are your thoughts on that being a main event for a pay-per-view? Does that make you more or less likely to buy the event or buy a ticket? Let me know your thoughts about that too. Wardlow is back on AEW television. Wardlow is officially back in All Elite Wrestling. On Wednesday's episode of AEW Dynamite, Wardlow made his long-awaited return to programming and defeated Griff Garrison in quick fashion. He wasted no time in going after Garrison, firing off stomps on him in the corner and executing 5 powerbombs in a powerbomb symphony before the referee sounded the bell and stopped the match. This marks the first time Wardlow has competed in the ring since losing the TNT Championship to Luchasaurus on the inaugural episode of AEW Collision on June 17, effectively ending his third reign. His first as a title holder occurred between July and November of 2022, while his second came in March of this year. Wardlow first appeared in AEW in November 2019. He made his in-ring debut in February 2020 in a steel cage match against Cody Rhodes. Aside from being a 3-time TNT champion, Wardlow is a former member of the Pinnacle and the short-lived Warjoe tag team with current Ring of Honor World Television champion Samoa Joe. Now that Wardlow's back, who would you like to see him face off against? Is this a good thing? And where do you think Wardlow goes from here? Let me know your thoughts on that. Now, of course, next week it's the big head-to-head episode, NXT versus AEW, and heading into that show, NXT's got a lot of momentum, not only from the things announced for the show, John Cena, Paul Heyman, as well as Cody Rhodes set to appear head-to-head with Dynamite, but also they've got momentum when it comes to the ratings as well. WWE's main roster continues to be a shot of adrenaline to the Tuesday night ratings as WWE NXT once again did major numbers with the return of Becky Lynch and Dominic Mysterio. WrestleNomics is reporting that NXT saw a 35% jump in overall viewership on Tuesday, with 857,000 tuning in despite competition from postseason Major League Baseball, higher than Lynch's initial NXT return a few weeks ago and the show's highest total viewership since October 28, 2020. The 18 to 49 demographic was up 23%, with 289,000 viewers from that highly coveted demographic tuning in as well. The highest rated segment from Tuesday's show was The Overrun, which featured the conclusion of now former NXT North American champion Trick Williams' unsuccessful title defense against Dominic Mysterio, with 928,000 tuning in to see Mysterio recapture the bout at Rhea Ripley's behest. The lowest rated segment for the 18 to 49 demographic was the tag match between Gallus and British Strong Style, while the overall audience was lowest for the beginning of Williams versus Mysterio. The show did plenty to set up next week for success as well, with the announcement that the October 10 episode will see appearances from former NXT Women's Champion Asuka, Cody Rhodes, Paul Heyman, and also multi-time WWE Champion John Cena. Of course, NXT, as I mentioned, will be up against AEW Dynamite, which will be presenting a special Title Tuesday edition of the program, rekindling the Wednesday Night Wars of 2020 and 2019, when the two programs were regularly battling for the market share on the same night. WWE seems to be loading up the show with main roster stars on top of Mysterio, Ripley, and Lynch, who have been buoying the ratings with their presence on the developmental program. Now, speaking of that big head-to-head next week, Dynamite have also revealed which shows, or AEW have revealed which shows are going to be on Dynamite. New matches for next week's special Tuesday edition of AEW Dynamite were announced last night on the show, including a new title match. Title Tuesday on October 10 is a rare occurrence of AEW Dynamite on a Tuesday and running against WWE NXT. Despite TBS listing it at 4 p.m. Eastern, it will in fact be at 8 p.m. Eastern, the same time on the USA Network. We'll get into that in just a second. There was quite a lot of confusion about the listings for that. But previously announced for next week's show, the debut match of Adam Copeland in AEW against Luchasaurus. There will also be an AEW Women's World Championship match that was already announced with Saraya defending against Hikaru Shida. Now, newly for the upcoming show, Swerve Strickland will take on Bryan Danielson in a battle of the Washington natives to determine who will be the number one contender for Christian Cage's TNT Championship. Also, Rey Fenix is going to put his International Championship on the line. We'll talk about who that's going to be against in just a second. Chris Jericho will face Powerhouse Hobbs, and Switchblade Jay White is set for a match against Hangman Adam Page. So certainly strong shows. Which do you think at the moment has the stronger lineup for next week? Let me know your thoughts about that. Now, as I mentioned, there was a bit of confusion about Dynamite and the scheduling for next week as well, and actually scheduling errors have been confirmed for Dynamite last night as well as next week too. Various, as in many providers and listings, had both last night's and next week's Dynamite episodes listed as 4 p.m. Eastern instead of the usual 8 p.m. Eastern. This would have been a pretty big development, given it would have meant that next week's show wouldn't have actually gone directly head-to-head with NXT, which WWE has loaded up with John Cena, Cody Rhodes, Paul Heyman, Asuka, and much more. At first, Tony Khan had only stated that last night's scheduling was wrong and hadn't mentioned next week's, which meant like it looked like next week's might have actually been accurate, which is what was tweeted out. But it was noted that we couldn't be certain and would clarify confirmation when it's available. Well, this confirmation has now been available, and as it turns out, the head-to-head, in fact, next week is indeed taking place. Khan tweeted the following when it comes to clarification. He said, quote, "The TBS schedule is wrong for Dynamite tonight and also wrong for next Tuesday. Despite what your TBS listings may say, AEW Dynamite Anniversary is in our usual spot tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, up soon. Next week, titled Tuesday, Dynamite is also 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on Tuesday, October 10, my birthday." So, at Tony Khan's birthday, not my birthday. But yes, so there was a bit of confusion when it came to scheduling and all that, but no, indeed, they are going head-to-head next week. Now, I mentioned Rey Fenix. He indeed is going to be defending his International Championship next week, as he did last night on AEW Dynamite. Despite battling through injury, Rey Fenix is still the AEW International Champion. On Wednesday's AEW Dynamite, Fenix defeated Nick Jackson in a hard-fought battle to retain the title. Initially injured in his title defense against Jeff Jarrett and then taken out of the four-way tag title number one contender match at Wrestle Dream, Fenix was clearly feeling the effects of his fledgling reign in that match, but was able to roll up Jackson to sneak out the win with his body and title reign intact. However, Fenix's celebration was short-lived, as later in the show it was announced that on the special Title Tuesday edition of AEW Dynamite, Fenix will have to face Moxley again in a rematch from their Grand Slam title match, with Moxley fresh off recovering from the concussion he suffered in said title bout. Fenix was reportedly not supposed to win the title in September, but the injury to Moxley forced the competitors to call an audible and switch the title. So, of course, this match is also added to next week. Do you think we see a situation where Moxley wins back the championship he was never meant to lose, or does Rey Fenix continue his title reign? Let me know your predictions about that one. Billie Starkz is officially All Elite. The AEW Women's Division has just gained a popular young upstart in the form of teenage star Billie Starkz. Starkz announced that she's officially signed with the promotion on Wrestling Observer Live, referring to herself as a signed talent, but not making it clear when she signed with the promotion. The independent star has been a standout performer on Ring of Honor programming as the plucky minion of Ring of Honor Women's World Champion Athena. Starkz made her AEW debut at the end of last year on AEW Dark and had a number of matches before showing up on Ring of Honor programming, where she both manages and is mentored by Athena. She recently said that her 5-year plan is focused on earning a living of professional wrestling and traveling the world, as well as moving out and living on her own. Before coming to AEW, Starkz not only made her name for herself on the American independent scene in places like Game Changer Wrestling and Black Label Pro, but also toured internationally, wrestling a tour for Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling in Japan, as well as pro wrestling in England as well. The 18-year-old is not only pursuing her dream as a wrestler, but will also be attending college as she continues to tour with AEW, looking to earn a 2-year degree in business and marketing from an online school. She believes the major would be a good fallback plan in case of any unforeseen stumbling blocks in her career as a professional wrestler. Finally, speaking of the women's division in AEW, Julia Hart has been turning quite a few heads recently with her impressive performances. There was plenty to get excited about coming out of Wrestle Dream this past Sunday, including the continued emergence of Julia Hart. The 21-year-old impressed many leading up to Wrestle Dream and turned out what many felt was a career-best performance in her first ever pay-per-view title match, unsuccessfully challenging Chris Statlander for the AEW TBS Championship. Unfortunately, for those hoping to see more of the House of Black member coming out of WrestleDream, they may have to wait a little while. Fightful Select is reporting that Hart is scheduled to have time off following the pay-per-view, with no return date firmly set in stone as of right now. Now, before you worry, the good news is that Hart's time off isn't due to injury or anything like that. She'll be on her honeymoon following her wedding to fellow AEW/Ring of Honor star Lee Johnson, who will also be taking some time away. Johnson has been competing regularly on Ring of Honor programming over the last month, most notably taking on then Ring of Honor World Champion Claudio Castagnoli. Hart and Johnson met while training at the Nightmare Factory and began dating in 2021 and announced their engagement in October of 2022. An Instagram post by Hart in September made its way to social media, indicated their wedding would take place on October 13. At this time, it remains unclear if Hart will have a non-presence on AEW TV altogether, or if AEW will air vignettes featuring Hart until she returns. Along with stablemate Brody King, Hart has been the only member of the House of Black to recently appear on AEW programming, as both Malachi Black and Buddy Matthews have been absent from TV, while Black recovered from an injury, and Matthews returned to his native Australia with his own fiancée, WWE's Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley. So, best of luck and congratulations go to Lee Johnson and Julia Hart on their upcoming nuptials. But there you go, guys. It's the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like or the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.